I walked through my front door that Tuesday evening, my heart still racing from the biggest news of my career. After 5 long years of hard work, I had finally been promoted to director at my father's company. I couldn't wait to tell Marcus, my husband, about this incredible moment. But something was very wrong. The house was filled with the smell of my favorite foods, lasagna, garlic bread, and that special chocolate cake Marcus only made for really important occasions. Soft music was playing, and there were balloons everywhere. Red roses, my absolute favorite, sat in beautiful vases around the living room. Surprise! Marcus shouted as he appeared from the kitchen, wearing his best smile and holding a bottle of champagne. My brilliant wife deserves the best celebration. I should have been happy. I should have been jumping up and down with joy. But instead, a cold feeling crept up my spine. Marcus was never home this early. He was always working late, always had meetings, always had some excuse. So, why was he here now, with a party already planned, when I hadn't even told him about my promotion yet? If you're wondering what happens next, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more shocking stories like this one. My name is Emma, and until that moment, I thought I had the perfect life. I'm the only daughter of the man who owns Salazar Construction Group, one of the biggest building companies in the whole country. I grew up with everything I could ever want: big houses, fancy cars, beautiful clothes, and the best schools money could buy. People always told me how lucky I was. But the truth is, I never cared about any of that stuff. The only thing that made me truly happy was Marcus. I met him 3 years ago at a coffee shop near my college. He wasn't rich like the other guys who usually tried to date me. Marcus came from a normal family. His dad was a teacher and his mom worked at a grocery store. But he had something special that none of those rich boys had. He had dreams. Big dreams. Marcus was smart, hardworking, and most importantly, he loved me for me, not for my family's money. At least, that's what I believed back then. When we got married 2 years ago, my parents gave us the most amazing wedding gift. They created a whole new company called Emma's Projects and put Marcus in charge of running it. My father said it was because he wanted to give his future son-in-law a chance to prove himself. "This company will be your legacy," Dad told Marcus on our wedding day. "Take care of it and take care of my daughter." Marcus promised he would do both. I was so happy to let him handle all the business stuff. I didn't want to work in construction or worry about money and meetings. All I wanted was to create the beautiful family life I had always dreamed of. I wanted to be the perfect wife, and someday, the perfect mother. For 2 whole years, everything seemed wonderful. Marcus worked hard every day, building up the company my parents had given him. He would come home tired but always with a smile for me. We would eat dinner together, watch movies, and make plans for our future. "One day, we'll have kids running around this house," Marcus would say, holding my hand. "And I'll teach them how to build things, just like your father taught me about business." I believed every word he said. But that Tuesday evening, as I stood in our living room surrounded by balloons and the smell of my favorite food, something felt terribly wrong. "How did you know?" I asked Marcus, trying to keep my voice normal. "How did you know about my promotion?" Marcus laughed and pulled me into his arms. "A husband knows these things, sweetheart. I could see how hard you've been working. I just had a feeling today was going to be your big day." His explanation sounded reasonable, but my heart was beating faster and faster. Marcus was many things, but he was not psychic. There was no way he could have just guessed that today, out of all days, I would get promoted. "But Marcus," I said slowly, "I only found out 2 hours ago. And you've been home for at least 3 hours preparing all this. I can tell because the lasagna takes that long to cook properly." For just a split second, Marcus's smile flickered. It was so quick that most people would have missed it. But I saw it. I saw the tiny moment of panic in his eyes before he covered it up with another laugh. "Oh, Emma, you're overthinking this," he said, spinning me around. "Can a man just want to celebrate his amazing wife? I made all your favorites, just in case you had good news today. And if you didn't, well, we could celebrate being together instead." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to push away the uncomfortable feeling in my stomach and just enjoy this beautiful moment. But something deep inside me was screaming that this didn't make sense. As we sat down to eat, Marcus seemed nervous. He kept checking his phone, which was very unusual for him. During dinner, we usually talked about our days, our dreams, and funny things that happen at work. But that night, Marcus barely spoke at all. "Is everything okay, honey?" I asked, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Of course," he said quickly, putting his phone face down on the table. "I just have some business stuff on my mind. You know how it is." But I didn't know how it was, because Marcus never brought work stress home with him. He always said our home was a place for love and happiness, not business worries. After dinner, Marcus suddenly stood up and started clearing the dishes. "You know what, sweetheart? I just remembered I have to take a business trip tomorrow morning." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "A business trip? But you didn't mention anything about a trip this morning." "It just came up today," Marcus said, not looking at me. "One of our partners in Santa Monica called with an emergency. Some problem with permits and inspections. I need to drive down there first thing in the morning." Santa Monica. That was a 3-hour drive from our house in Los Angeles. "How long will you be gone?" I asked. "Probably until the weekend. Maybe longer if things are really complicated." I felt that cold feeling in my stomach again. Marcus had never taken a business trip that long without talking to me about it first. We planned everything together, even short trips to the grocery store. "Can't someone else handle it?" I asked. "We were supposed to go see that new movie tomorrow night. Remember? We've been planning it for weeks." Marcus finally looked at me, and for a moment, his face looked almost guilty. But then he smiled his usual warm smile and came over to hug me. "I'm sorry, baby. I know we had plans, but this is really important for the company. Your father is counting on me to handle these big problems."
He was right about that.
Dad had trusted Marcus with so much responsibility. I couldn't be selfish and ask him to ignore his work duties just because I wanted to spend time with him. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll miss you, though." "I'll miss you too," Marcus said, kissing the top of my head. "But I'll be back before you know it. And when I get home, we'll do something really special to celebrate your promotion properly." That night, I helped Marcus pack his bags. I folded his shirts carefully and made sure he had all his favorite snacks for the long drive. As always, I reminded him to drive safely and call me when he arrived. "Take care of yourself," I said, standing on my tiptoes to kiss him goodbye the next morning. "You too, sweetheart," Marcus replied, holding me tight. "Be good while I'm gone." I watched his black BMW disappear through our garage door, and that's when the strangest feeling hit me. Our big house in Beverly Hills, which was usually filled with laughter and music, suddenly felt completely empty. It wasn't just quiet, it was like all the warmth had been sucked right out of the walls. I wandered around the house, trying to keep myself busy. I cleaned the kitchen, organized my closet, and even watered all the plants. But my mind kept going back to the night before. Something about Marcus's behavior just didn't add up. And then I remembered something important. My parents had bought us a beautiful beach house in Santa Monica as a wedding present. We barely ever used it, maybe 5 or 6 times in 2 years. It was supposed to be our romantic getaway place, but Marcus always seemed to find excuses not to go there. "It's too far to drive for just a weekend," he would say. Or, "We have too much work to catch up on." The last time we had talked about the beach house, Marcus suggested we should rent it out to make some extra money. "It's just sitting there empty," he had said. "We might as well put it to good use." But I had said no. The house was a gift from my parents, and it felt wrong to let strangers live there. Now, as I sat in our empty house, a crazy idea popped into my head. What if I drove to Santa Monica and surprised Marcus at the beach house? I could clean it up, maybe cook him a nice dinner, and we could spend a romantic evening together after his business meeting. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. Marcus would be so surprised to see me, and maybe we could finally use that beautiful house the way my parents had intended. I grabbed my car keys and headed for the door. I had no idea that this simple decision would change my entire life forever. As I drove toward Santa Monica, I felt happy for the first time since Marcus had left. I couldn't wait to see the look on his face when I showed up at the beach house. But what I found there would be more shocking than anything I could have ever imagined. The 3-hour drive to Santa Monica felt like the longest trip of my life. Every mile brought new excitement about surprising Marcus. I imagined his face lighting up when he saw me at the door. Maybe we could order pizza and watch the sunset from our balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I had stopped at the grocery store to buy ingredients for his favorite meal, steak with garlic potatoes and green beans. The bags were sitting in my back seat, along with a bottle of wine I had picked out specially for the occasion. This is going to be perfect, I told myself as I drove through the busy streets of Santa Monica. Our beach house was located in one of the most expensive buildings in the city. The Ocean View Towers sat right on the beach, with huge windows that looked out over the water. Our apartment was on the 25th floor, high enough to see for miles in every direction. My parents had chosen this place because they wanted Marcus and me to have somewhere beautiful and peaceful to escape from the busy city life. Every young couple needs a romantic hideaway, my mother had said when she gave us the keys. As I rode the elevator up to the 25th floor, my heart was beating fast with excitement. I couldn't wait to see Marcus's surprised face. But when the elevator doors opened, I felt a strange chill in the air. Something was different. The hallway looked exactly the same as always: elegant white walls, soft carpet, and expensive artwork hanging in gold frames. But there was a feeling in the air that made my stomach twist into knots. I walked slowly toward apartment 2501, our apartment, carrying the grocery bags in both hands. With each step, that uncomfortable feeling got stronger and stronger. And then I heard something that made me freeze in place. Music. Soft, gentle music coming from inside our apartment. But not just any music. It was a lullaby, the kind of sweet song that people play for babies. My hands started shaking so hard that I almost dropped the grocery bags. Why would there be baby music coming from our apartment? Marcus and I didn't have any children. We had talked about having kids someday, but that was still just a dream for the future. I stood outside the door for what felt like hours, just listening. The music continued to play, soft and peaceful, like someone was trying to help a baby fall asleep. Maybe Marcus was watching TV, I told myself. Maybe there was a commercial or a movie with babies in it. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. With shaking hands, I reached into my purse to find my keys. The keyring felt heavy and cold in my palm. I had carried these keys for 2 years, but suddenly they felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I put the key into the lock very slowly, trying not to make any noise. The metal made a tiny clicking sound as it turned, and I held my breath, hoping no one inside would hear it. The door opened with a soft creak. What I saw inside made my blood turn to ice. The apartment wasn't empty like it was supposed to be. Someone was definitely living here. There were pink women's slippers sitting neatly by the front door, small, cute slippers with little flowers on them. They looked brand new and expensive. I had never seen those slippers before in my life. On the coffee table, there were baby bottles, small toys, and a pink blanket folded neatly in a basket. The whole living room had been changed. It looked like a place where a woman and a baby lived. My apartment. My beautiful beach house that my parents had bought for Marcus and me. Someone else was living in our home. I felt like I was going to throw up. My legs became so weak that I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling down. This can't be real, I whispered to myself. This has to be some kind of mistake. But before I could think of what to do next, I heard footsteps coming from the bedroom. A young woman appeared in the doorway, and when she saw me, both of us froze like statues. She was pretty, maybe about my age, with long dark hair pulled up in a messy bun. She was wearing simple pajamas, the kind that new mothers wear when they're taking care of babies. Her face looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping much. But what made my heart stop completely was what she was carrying in her arms. A baby. A tiny baby, maybe 1 year old, wearing little blue pajamas and holding a pacifier in his small fist. The woman stared at me with wide, surprised eyes. I could tell she was scared and confused about why a stranger was standing in her living room. "Excuse me," she said in a voice that was polite but worried. "Are you looking for someone?" Can I help you? I stood there like I had been turned into stone. My mouth opened, but no words came out. A million questions were spinning around in my head, but I couldn't ask any of them. Who was this woman? Whose baby was she holding? And why were they living in the apartment that belonged to Marcus and me? I tried to make my brain work normally. I tried to think of some logical explanation for what I was seeing. Maybe Marcus had rented the apartment to this woman without telling me. Maybe she was a friend who needed a place to stay temporarily. Maybe there was some perfectly innocent reason why she was here with her baby. But even as I tried to convince myself of these possibilities, I knew something was very wrong. "Oh," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal even though my heart was pounding like a drum. "Hi there. I'm so sorry to bother you. I think I might have gotten off on the wrong floor." I held up the grocery bags like they explained everything. I was looking for apartment 2502. My friend lives there, and I was bringing her some food. It was a lie, but I needed time to think. I needed to figure out what was happening before I said or did anything I might regret. The young woman's face relaxed a little bit. She looked at my nice clothes and expensive purse, and I could tell she decided I probably wasn't dangerous. "Oh, that's okay," she said with a small smile. "This is 2501. The apartment you're looking for is probably right next door." "Thank you so much," I said, backing toward the door. "I'm sorry for scaring you. I'll just go find the right place." I turned to leave, desperate to get out of there so I could think clearly. But just as I was about to step into the hallway, the baby in her arms started crying. Sure, the woman said in a sweet, loving voice. "It's okay, my little Leo. Everything's fine." She bounced the baby gently, trying to calm him down. Her voice became even softer and more loving as she continued talking to the child. "Don't cry, sweetie. Daddy Marcus will be here soon. He promised he would bring you those new toys you like." The words hit me like a truck crashing into a brick wall. Daddy Marcus. The hallway started spinning around me. The walls felt like they were closing in. My vision became blurry and I thought I might faint right there on the expensive carpet. Marcus. My Marcus. This woman had just called him Daddy Marcus. Which meant, I couldn't finish the thought. It was too horrible, too impossible to believe. But the evidence was right there in front of me. A woman, a baby, living in MY apartment, calling MY husband Daddy. I stumbled backward until my back hit the wall across from the apartment door. I needed something solid to hold me up because my legs felt like they were made of water. The woman was still inside, talking sweetly to the baby she called Leo. I could hear her voice through the slightly open door, but it sounded like it was coming from very far away. "Daddy Marcus loves you so much," she was saying. "He works so hard to take care of us. We're so lucky to have him." Each word was like a knife cutting deeper and deeper into my heart. Marcus wasn't in Santa Monica for a business meeting. Marcus was here to visit his other family. The family he had been hiding from me for who knows how long. I pressed my hands against my mouth to stop myself from screaming. Hot tears started rolling down my cheeks, but I couldn't make any sound. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would start screaming and never be able to stop. How long had this been going on? How long had Marcus been lying to me, pretending to love only me while he had a whole other life with this woman and her baby? The baby looked about 1 year old. That meant Marcus had been cheating on me since right after we got married. Maybe even before we got married. All those times he said he was working late, all those business trips, all those moments when he seemed distracted or worried about something he wouldn't talk about. Now it all made perfect sense. I stood in that empty hallway, feeling like my entire world had just exploded into a million pieces. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and my husband was a lie. The woman inside the apartment was still talking to the baby, but I could no longer understand what she was saying. All I could hear was the sound of my own heart breaking. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I heard something that would destroy what was left of my world completely. The woman's phone started ringing from inside the apartment. "Oh," I heard her say, excitedly. "That must be Daddy calling to check on us." I knew I should walk away. I knew I should get in my car and drive home and try to figure out what to do next. But my feet wouldn't move. Something inside me needed to hear this phone call. I needed to know the complete truth, no matter how much it hurt. I stayed pressed against that wall, listening to every word that was about to shatter my heart into pieces, so small they could never be put back together again. I pressed myself against the cold wall in the hallway, my heart beating so loud I was afraid the woman inside could hear it. Every part of me wanted to run away, to get in my car, and pretend I had never seen any of this. But I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, like someone had cast a spell on me. Inside the apartment, I heard the woman answer her phone with the happiest voice I had ever heard. "Hello, my love," she said, and I could practically hear her smiling through the door. "I was just thinking about you." My stomach twisted into painful knots. The way she said "my love" was exactly the same way I said it to Marcus. Sweet, caring, and full of real affection. She wasn't just some random woman. She loved him, and from the sound of her voice, he loved her back. I held my breath and listened as she continued talking. "Leo and I are doing great," she said, bouncing the baby gently. "But he's been a little fussy today. I think he misses his daddy."
His daddy.
There it was again. This wasn't some misunderstanding or coincidence. This woman truly believed that Marcus was the father of her baby. And if the baby was 1 year old, that meant I pressed my hands against my mouth to stop myself from making any noise. The math was simple and horrible. Marcus had been seeing this woman for at least 2 years. Maybe even longer. Our entire marriage had been built on lies. The woman kept talking, and every word made my heart break a little more. "Where are you now, sweetheart?" she asked. "Are you still at that boring work meeting?" Work meeting. So that's what Marcus had told her. He probably said he was stuck in some terrible business meeting while he was actually at home with me, celebrating my promotion. "Oh, you're almost done? That's wonderful," the woman said. "Leo will be so excited to see you. He's been asking for Dada all day." The baby had learned to say Dada. Marcus had missed so many of my important moments because of work, but he had been there to hear this child's first words. I felt like someone was squeezing my chest so tight I couldn't breathe. But the worst part was still coming. "Oh my goodness, Marcus," the woman suddenly squealed with excitement. "You didn't. Really? You actually bought it." She paused, listening to whatever Marcus was saying on the other end of the phone. Her voice got higher and more excited with every word. "The handbag I showed you the picture of? The red one with the gold details? Marcus, that costs almost $10,000. You spoil me way too much." $10,000. I felt like someone had just punched me in the stomach. Just 3 months ago, I had asked Marcus if we could buy a necklace for our wedding anniversary. It was a simple, beautiful piece that cost $2,000. Nothing too fancy, just something special to celebrate our love. But Marcus had said no. "Emma, sweetheart," he had told me with his most serious voice, "the company is going through a tough time right now. We need to be careful with money and set a good example for our employees. We can't be spending on expensive things when we're asking everyone else to tighten their belts." I had felt guilty for even asking. I told him he was absolutely right and that I didn't need any jewelry anyway. His love was enough for me. What a fool I had been. While he was telling me we had to be careful with money, he was spending $10,000 on handbags for his mistress. The woman was still gushing about the expensive gift. "I love you so much, Marcus," she said in a voice that was pure honey. "You work so hard to take care of Leo and me. I don't know what we would do without you." Marcus was saying something back to her, and she started giggling like a teenager. "Stop it. You're making me blush," she said playfully. "You always know exactly what to say to make me feel like the luckiest woman in the world." The luckiest woman in the world. That's exactly how I used to feel about being married to Marcus. Before I knew the truth. The conversation continued, and each word felt like a sharp knife cutting deeper into my soul. "Yes, Leo is eating well," the woman reported. "He loved those baby cookies you bought him last week. And guess what? He took 3 steps all by himself yesterday. I wish you could have seen it." Marcus had missed his son's first steps, because he was with me. But instead of feeling happy about that, I felt sick. This innocent baby was growing up, and Marcus was trying to be in two places at once. I took a video on my phone, the woman continued. I'll show you when you get here. Oh, and don't forget, we have that appointment on Saturday to look at the house. My blood turned cold. What house? Yes, the one in the new neighborhood with the big yard and the swimming pool, she said dreamily. I drove by it again yesterday, and it's even more beautiful than I remembered. Leo would have so much space to play when he gets older. She paused, listening to Marcus's response. I know it's expensive, but you always say that Leo deserves the best of everything. And you work so hard, honey. Don't we deserve a real home where we can be a proper family? A proper family. That phrase hit me like a lightning bolt. She wasn't just Marcus's mistress. She wasn't just some woman he was having an affair with for fun. She thought they were going to be a real family. She thought Marcus was going to leave me and marry her. Maybe he already had left me in his heart. Maybe I was the mistress now, and I just didn't know it yet. How much did you say the house costs? The woman asked. 400,000? Marcus, that's so much money. Are you sure the company can afford it? The company? She was talking about Emma's projects, the company my parents had given to Marcus as a wedding gift. He was planning to use money from MY family's business to buy a house for his other woman and their baby. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of betrayal. Oh, you're so smart about business, the woman said admiringly. I trust you completely. If you think we can afford it, then I'm sure it will work out perfectly. She trusted him completely. Just like I had trusted him completely. What time will you be here tonight? She asked, and I could hear her moving around the apartment, probably getting ready for his arrival. 8 o'clock?
Perfect.
I'll make your favorite dinner, that pasta dish you love with the special cheese. And Leo can stay up a little late, so he can play with his daddy. 8 o'clock. It was already 7:30. Marcus would be arriving in just 30 minutes. I knew I needed to get out of there immediately. If Marcus found me in that hallway, listening to his private conversation with his secret family, everything would explode right there and then. But I still couldn't move. It was like my feet were glued to the floor. The woman was finishing up her phone call now, and her voice was so full of love and happiness that it made me want to scream. Drive carefully, my darling, she said sweetly. Leo and I will be waiting for you. We love you more than all the stars in the sky. There was a pause, and then she made a kissing sound into the phone. Kiss, kiss. See you soon, my wonderful man. The call ended. I heard her walk back toward the bedroom, probably to get herself ready for Marcus's arrival. She was humming a happy little song, the kind of song that people hum when their whole world is perfect and beautiful. But my whole world had just been destroyed. I finally managed to move my feet and walked slowly toward the elevator, feeling like I was in some terrible nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. In the elevator, I caught sight of myself in the mirrored walls. My face was completely white, and my eyes were red and puffy from crying. I looked like a ghost, which is exactly how I felt. A ghost of the woman I used to be. The woman who trusted her husband. The woman who believed in true love and happy endings. That woman was dead now. As the elevator carried me down to the parking garage, I tried to process everything I had just learned. Marcus had been living a double life for at least 2 years. He had another woman who loved him completely. He had a baby son who called him daddy. He was spending thousands and thousands of dollars on them, money that came from MY family's business. And now he was planning to buy them a house. A house that would cost $400,000 of MY family's money. But the worst part of all wasn't the money, or even the lies. The worst part was that Marcus seemed genuinely happy with them. The way the woman talked about him, the way she giggled at his jokes, the way she trusted him with their future. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was building a whole new life that didn't include me at all. I got into my car and sat there for a long time, staring at the building where MY husband was about to have dinner with his other family. The grocery bags were still in my back seat, the ingredients for the special meal I had planned to cook for Marcus. The meal that was supposed to celebrate my promotion and bring us closer together. Now those bags just reminded me of how stupid I had been. I started the car and began the long drive back to Los Angeles, back to the empty house that suddenly felt like a prison. But as I drove through the dark streets, something strange started happening inside me. The terrible sadness I had been feeling was slowly being replaced by something else. Something cold and hard and angry. Marcus thought he was so clever, living two lives and fooling everyone. He thought he could use my family's money and trust to build his perfect little second family while keeping me as his comfortable backup plan. He thought I was just a naive little rich girl who would never figure out what he was really doing. But Marcus had made a big mistake. He had forgotten that I was a Salazar. And Salazars don't just get mad. We get even. The drive back to Los Angeles was the longest 3 hours of my entire life. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles turned white, but I barely noticed. My mind was spinning like a tornado, trying to make sense of everything I had just discovered. Every few minutes, a new horrible realization would hit me like a slap in the face. Marcus calling in sick last month when he said he had the flu. He was probably spending time with Leo when the baby was actually sick. Those mysterious phone calls Marcus would take in the other room, saying it was boring work stuff. He was probably talking to her, planning their future together. The expensive cologne I found in his car that he said was a free sample from a store, she had probably bought it for him as a gift. All those little things that had seemed strange, but not important enough to worry about. Now they all made perfect sense. By the time I reached our house in Beverly Hills, I felt like a completely different person than the happy woman who had left that morning to surprise her husband. I parked in our driveway and sat in my car for a long time, staring at our beautiful house. Just 12 hours ago, this place had represented everything good in my life. It was where Marcus and I had planned our future, where we had talked about raising children someday, where we had promised to love each other forever. Now it felt like a museum full of fake memories. I finally forced myself to get out of the car and walk to the front door. My legs felt shaky and weak, like I had just run a marathon. Inside, everything looked exactly the same as when I had left. The balloons from last night's celebration were still hanging from the ceiling. The leftover cake was still in the refrigerator. The champagne bottle was still sitting on the counter, half empty. But nothing would ever be the same again. I walked through the house like I was seeing it for the first time. In the living room, there were framed pictures of Marcus and me on our wedding day, both of us smiling like we had just won the lottery. In our bedroom, there were love letters he had written me during our first year of marriage, telling me I was the only woman he would ever need.
Lies.
All of it. Beautiful, convincing lies. I sat down on our bed and finally let myself cry for real. Not the quiet, shocked tears from earlier, but deep, painful sobs that came from the very center of my soul. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have missed all the signs? But even as I cried, my brain was working, putting together pieces of a puzzle I had never wanted to solve. Marcus had been planning this double life very carefully. The woman, I still didn't even know her name, seemed to believe that Marcus was going to leave me and marry her. She talked about him like he was completely hers, like I didn't even exist. Which meant Marcus had probably been telling her that his marriage to me was just for business. Maybe he told her that he was only staying married to me until he could figure out how to get control of the company. Maybe he said he was waiting for the right time to ask for a divorce. The thought made me feel sick all over again. But then I started thinking about something else. Something that made my sadness turn into burning anger. My parents. My dear, trusting parents who had welcomed Marcus into our family like he was the son they never had. My father, who had worked his entire life to build Salazar Construction Group from nothing into one of the biggest companies in the country. My mother, who had treated Marcus like her own child, cooking his favorite meals and buying him thoughtful gifts. The conversation continued, everything, and each word felt like a sharp knife, cutting deeper into my trust and their dreams for the
Leo
future.
is eating
When
well.
my father handed
The woman
over Emma's
reported.
projects to
He
Marcus,
loved those baby
it wasn't
cookies you
just a
bought him
business
last week.
transaction.
And guess what?
It was a father
He
giving
took
his life's
3
work
steps
to the
all
man
by
he
himself
believed would
yesterday.
take care
I
of
wish
his
you could
daughter
have seen
forever. This
Marcus
company
had missed
represents
his son's
everything
first
I've
steps
worked for
because he was with
Dad
me.
had told Marcus,
But instead of
on
feeling
our wedding
happy
day,
about that,
I'm
I
trusting
felt
you with
sick.
my legacy.
This
Because
innocent
I
baby
know
was
you'll
growing
protect
up,
it and help
and
it
Marcus
grow.
was trying to be
Marcus
in two
had looked my
places at
father
once.
straight in the
I
eyes
took a
and
video on my
promised
phone.
he would never
The
let him
woman
down.
continued.
But
I'll
now
show
Marcus
you when you
was
get
planning
here.
to use money from that company.
And don't forget,
my family's
we
money.
have that appointment
to
on
buy a
Saturday
house
to
for
look
a
at the
secret
house.
girlfriend.
My
And their
blood
baby.
turned cold.
He wasn't just
What
cheating on me.
house?
Yes,
He was stealing
the one
from
in
my
the new
family.
neighborhood with the
I
big
thought
yard
about my
and the
parents'
swimming
faces
pool
when they
she
found
said
out the
dreamily.
truth.
I
The
drove by it
disappointment,
again yesterday,
the heartbreak,
and it's even more
the
beautiful
embarrassment of
than
having
I
to tell
remembered.
their friends
Leo
and
would
business
have
partners
so much
that they had
space
been
to play
fooled
when he
by a
gets
con
older.
man. My
She
father was getting
paused,
older
listening
now.
to Marcus's
His health
response.
wasn't as good as it used
I
to be.
know it's expensive,
and stress
but you
always
always
made
say
it
that
worse.
Leo deserves
News
the best
like
of
this
everything.
could seriously hurt
and
him.
you work so
and my
hard,
mother,
honey.
she loved Marcus.
Don't we
so
deserve a
much.
real home where
She
we can be a
always
proper
bragged
family?
to her friends about
A
what a
proper
wonderful
family.
son-in-law she
That
had.
phrase hit me like
how he was
a
everything
lightning
she
bolt.
could have hoped for
She
in a
wasn't
husband
just
for her
Marcus's
only daughter.
mistress.
This
She
betrayal
wasn't just
would
some
crush them
woman
both.
he was having an affair
but
with for
it would
fun.
also destroy
She
our
thought they were
family's
going to be a real
reputation.
family.
Everyone in
She
our
thought
social
Marcus
circle
was going to
would be
leave
talking
me
about it
and
the
marry
business
her.
community
Maybe
would
he already
lose
had
trust
left
in
me
our
in his
family's
heart.
judgment.
Maybe I was
Stock
the mistress
prices
now,
might even
and
go
I
down
just didn't
if
know it
investors
yet.
thought we
How much
couldn't
did you
manage
say
our
the
own
house
personal
costs?
affairs.
The woman asked.
Marcus had put my
400,000?
entire family at risk
Marcus,
for his selfish
that's
desires.
so much money.
As I sat there
Are you
thinking
sure the
about all of
company
this,
can afford it?
I felt
The company.
something change inside
She was talking
me.
about Emma's
the crushing
projects.
sadness.
The
was
company
still
my
there,
parents had
but
given
it
to
was being
Marcus
joined
as a
by
wedding gift.
something much stronger.
He was planning to use money
Rage.
from MY
Pure
family's
cold
business
rage.
to buy a house
Marcus
for his
thought
other
he was
woman
so
and
smart.
their baby.
He thought
I
he could
felt
play
like
both
I was
sides
drowning
forever,
in an ocean of
keeping
betrayal.
me as his wealthy, respectable
you're
wife
so
while
smart
building
about
his real
business.
life with someone
The woman
else.
said admiringly.
He probably laughed
I
about
trust
it
you
sometimes.
completely.
If you
Poor,
think we can
naive
afford
Emma,
it, so
then I'm
trusting
sure it
and
will work out
clueless.
perfectly.
She'll never figure it
She
out.
trusted him completely.
But he had made one
just
very
like I
big
had
mistake.
trusted him completely.
He had forgotten
What
that
time
I
will you
wasn't
be
just
here
some
tonight?
spoiled rich
She
girl
asked,
who would fall
and
apart
I
at the
could hear
first
her
sign
moving
of
around
trouble.
the apartment.
I was probably
Salazar.
getting ready for his
And
arrival.
Salazar's had been
8
building
o'clock?
business empires
Perfect.
for 3
I'll make
generations
your
by
favorite
being
dinner.
tough,
That
smart,
pasta dish you
and
love with
strategic.
the special cheese.
My grandfather
and
had
Leo
started
can stay
with
up a little
nothing
late
and
so
built a
he
construction
can play with
company
his daddy.
that survived the Great
8
Depression.
o'clock.
My
It was
father had
already
turned that small
7:30.
company into
Marcus
a
would be
billion-dollar
arriving
empire.
in just
They
30
hadn't
minutes.
done that by being
I
soft
knew I needed
or
to get out of there
naive.
immediately.
And
I
if
wasn't
Marcus
going to let
found
some
me in that
cheating,
hallway,
lying thief
listening to his
destroy
private
everything
conversation
my
with his
family
secret
had
family,
built.
everything
I
would
wiped away my
explode right
tears
there
and
walked
then.
over to my laptop.
But I still couldn't
If
move.
Marcus wanted to play
it was
games,
like my feet
I needed
were
to
glued
understand
to the floor.
exactly what
the
I was
woman
dealing
was
with.
finishing up her phone
I
call
spent
now,
the next 4
and her
hours
voice
going
was
through
so
every
full of
financial
love
document
and
I could
happiness
access.
that it made me
Bank
want to scream.
statements, credit
Drive
card
carefully,
bills,
my darling,
business expense
she said
reports.
sweetly.
Anything
Leo
that might show
and
me
I
how
will be
long
waiting
this
for you.
betrayal had been
We
going
love
on,
you more than
and
all the stars
how
in the
much
sky.
money Marcus had
There was a
already
pause,
stolen.
and then
What
she
I
made
found
a
made
kissing
me
sound
even
into the
angrier.
phone.
Over
Kiss,
the past
kiss.
2 years,
See
Marcus
you
had been
soon, my
taking
wonderful
money
man.
out of the business in
The
dozens
call
of small
ended.
amounts.
I heard her
A
walk
few
back
thousand
toward
here
the bedroom,
for equipment repairs
probably to
that
get
never
herself
happened.
ready for Marcus's
A few
arrival.
thousand there
She was
for
humming a
business
happy
dinners
little
that
song,
were
the kind
actually
of song that
expensive
people
dates
hum
with
when
his
their whole
girlfriend.
world is perfect.
He had been
and
very
beautiful.
clever about it,
but MY
never
whole
taking
world
enough at
had
one
just
time
been
to raise
destroyed.
suspicions.
I finally
But
managed
when I
to move
added
my
it all
feet,
up
and
the
walked
total was
slowly
shocking.
toward the elevator,
Nearly
feeling like I was in some
$200,000 of
terrible
my family's
nightmare
money
that I couldn't wake
had
up
been
from.
spent on his
In
secret
the
life.
elevator, the
I caught
handbags,
sight of
the
myself
jewelry,
in the mirrored
expensive
walls.
baby clothes
My
and
face
toys,
was completely
the rent
white,
on the Santa
and my
Monica
eyes
apartment.
were red and
all of
puffy
it paid
from
for with
crying.
money that
I
belonged
looked
to
like
my
a ghost,
family,
which is exactly
Marcus
how
hadn't
I
just
felt.
been cheating on
A
me.
ghost of the woman
He had
I
been
used to be.
systematically robbing
The
us
woman
for
who
2
trusted her
years.
husband.
But as
The
angry
woman
as
who
I
believed
was,
in
I
true
forced
love
myself
and
to
happy
think
endings.
clearly about what to do
That
next.
woman was dead now.
My first
As the
instinct was
elevator
to confront
carried
him
me down to the
immediately.
parking garage,
I wanted to call him right
I tried
now
to process
and
everything
scream
I
at
had
him
just
until my
learned. voice gave out.
Marcus had been
I
living
wanted
a
to drive
double
back
life
to
for
Santa
at least
Monica
2 years.
and bang on that
He had
apartment
another
door
woman who
until
loved
the whole
him
building
completely.
could hear me telling
He had a baby
everyone
son
what
who
a
called him
liar
daddy.
and a thief he
He was
was.
spending
But
thousands
that would
and
be the
thousands
worst
of dollars on
possible
them.
thing I could do.
Money that came
If I
from
confronted
NY
Marcus
family's
now,
business.
while I
And
was
now he was
emotional
planning
and
to buy them a
unprepared,
house.
he would
A
have
house
all
that
the
would
advantages.
cost $400,000
He had been planning
of
and
NY
lying for 2
family's
years.
money.
But
He
the worst
probably
part
had
of all wasn't
explanations
the
ready
money
for
or
everything.
even the lies.
He might even turn
the
the
worst
situation
part was
around
that Marcus
and make it
seemed
seem
genuinely
like
happy
I
with
was
them.
the crazy,
The way the woman
jealous
talked about
wife
him,
who was
the way she
imagining
giggled at
things.
his jokes,
And if
the
I
way
made
she
a big
trusted him with
scene,
their future,
word would get out
he
immediately.
wasn't just cheating on
Within
me.
24
He was
hours,
building a whole
everyone
new
would
life
know
that
about
didn't
the
include me at
scandal.
all.
My
I got into
parents
my
would be
car
humiliated
and sat
before
there
I
for
had
a
a
long
chance to
time,
prepare them.
staring
The
at the
business
building
would
where
be
my
damaged
husband was
before
about
we
to
could
have
figure
dinner
out
with his
how to
other
protect
family.
it.
The
Marcus
grocery
might
bags
even
were still in
disappear
my
with
back
whatever
seat.
money he could
The
grab,
ingredients
leaving
for
us
the
to clean up
special
the
meal
mess
I
while he
had
started
planned
a
to
new
cook for
life
Marcus.
somewhere else with his
The
girlfriend
meal that was supposed
and
to
baby.
celebrate my promotion
I
and
needed to
bring
be
us
smart
closer
about
together.
this.
Now
I
those
needed to
bags
think
just
like a
reminded
Salazar.
me of how
Strategically,
stupid I had been.
patiently,
I started the car
and with a plan that
and
would give
began
me
the long
every
drive
possible
back to Los
advantage.
Angeles.
Marcus
Back
thought
to
he
the
was
empty
the only
house
one
that
who
suddenly
knew how
felt
to
like
keep
a prison.
secrets and
But
manipulate
as I drove
situations.
through the dark streets,
But he was about to
something
learn
strange
that
started
he wasn't the
happening inside
smartest
me.
person in
The
this
terrible
marriage.
sadness
He
I
was
had
about
been
to
feeling
discover
was
that the
slowly being
quiet,
replaced
trusting
by
wife
something
he had been
else,
taking advantage
something
of was
cold and
much
hard
more dangerous
and angry
than he had ever
Marcus
imagined.
thought he was so
I
clever,
closed my
living
laptop
two
and
lives
walked upstairs
and
to our
fooling
bedroom.
everyone.
In the morning,
He thought he
I
could
would
use
start
my
putting
family's
together a
money
plan
and
that would
trust
not
to
only
build his
expose
perfect
Marcus
little
for what
second
he really
family,
was, while
but would
keeping me
also
as his
protect my
comfortable
family
backup plan
and make sure he paid
thought
for
I was
every
just
dollar
a
he had
naive
stolen,
little rich
and
girl who
every
would never
lie he
figure
had
out what he
told.
was really
But
doing.
tonight,
But
I
Marcus
needed to
had made a
rest
big
and
mistake.
prepare myself for
He
the
had
battle
forgotten
ahead.
that I was
Because
a Salazar.
that's exactly what
And
this is going to
Salazars
be,
don't
a
just get
battle.
mad. And
We
I
get
intended
even.
to win. As I got ready for bed, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were still red from crying, but there was something new in them now. Determination. Cold, hard determination. Marcus had started this war when he decided to betray my love and steal from my family. Now I was going to finish it. I woke up the next morning feeling like a completely different person. The crying was over. The shock had passed. What remained was something much more powerful, a clear, focused mind that knew exactly what needed to be done. Marcus had taught me a valuable lesson without even knowing it. He had shown me that nice people who trust others can be easily destroyed by people who are willing to lie and cheat. But he had also made a fatal mistake. He thought I would stay nice forever. I got dressed in my best business suit, the navy blue one that made me look older and more serious. Today was going to be the first day of my real education, and I needed to look the part. My first stop was my father's office at Salazar Construction Group. Dad was surprised to see me so early, especially since I was supposed to be celebrating my promotion. "Emma, sweetheart," he said, giving me a big hug. "You look tired. Are you feeling okay?" "I'm fine, Dad," I said, forcing a smile. "I just wanted to ask you about something business-related." For the next hour, I asked my father carefully planned questions about Emma's projects. How much money was in the accounts? Who had access to what funds? What kind of oversight was there on expenses? I was very careful not to make him suspicious. I framed my questions like I was just trying to understand the business better now that I had been promoted. "I want to be more involved in all our family companies," I explained. "Marcus works so hard, and I think I should help him more." Dad was delighted that I was taking more interest in business. He spent the morning teaching me about financial controls, audit procedures, and legal protections. "The most important thing," Dad said, "is to always have multiple people checking the books. Trust is good, but verification is better." I nodded and took notes, but inside I was thinking, too bad we didn't follow that rule with Marcus. My next stop was our family lawyer, Mr. Rodriguez. He had handled our legal affairs for 20 years, and I knew I could trust him completely. "I need to understand my legal rights," I told him privately. "If someone was stealing from a company I partially owned, what could I do about it?" Mr. Rodriguez raised his eyebrows. "That's a very specific question, Emma. Is there something you need to tell me?" "Not yet," I said carefully. "But I might need your help very soon. I want to be prepared." He spent 2 hours explaining fraud laws, asset protection, and criminal procedures. By the time I left his office, I had a much clearer picture of my options. The third stop was the hardest one. I needed to hire a private investigator. I found one through Mr. Rodriguez's recommendation, a former police detective named Sarah Chen who specialized in corporate fraud and infidelity cases. "I need you to investigate my husband," I told her, hating how the words sounded, but knowing they were necessary. Sarah was professional and understanding. "What do you suspect?" "Theft from our family business." And I took a deep breath. "I believe he has another family." Sarah didn't even blink. "How long do you need the investigation to take?" "I need everything," I said. "Financial records, phone records, travel patterns, the works. But I need you to be invisible. He can't know he's being watched." "Give me 2 weeks," Sarah said. "I'll get you enough evidence to bury him, if that's what you want." Over the next 2 weeks, I became an actress worthy of an Academy Award. Every day, Marcus came home from his work, and I greeted him with smiles and kisses. I asked about his day, cooked his favorite meals,
and pretended to believe every lie that came out of his mouth. "How was the meeting in Santa Monica?" I would ask innocently. "Oh, you know how it is," Marcus would reply. "Boring contractor stuff. Nothing you'd be interested in." I would nod sympathetically while inside I was thinking, "I know exactly how interesting your Santa Monica meetings are." The hardest part was when he would hold me at night, whispering sweet words in my ear about how much he loved me and how lucky he felt to be married to me. "You're everything to me, Emma," he would say. "I can't imagine my life without you." Each lie felt like a small knife cutting into my heart, but I forced myself to smile and say I loved him too. Because I was gathering information. I started paying attention to patterns. Marcus got mysterious phone calls every Tuesday and Friday at exactly 6 p.m. He always took these calls in his study with the door closed, claiming they were boring conference calls with investors. But I knew better now. Tuesday and Friday were probably the days he called to check on Leo and his mother. I also noticed that Marcus had been working late every Wednesday for the past 3 months. But when I called the office on Wednesday evenings, his secretary always said he had left early. Wednesday must be his day to visit his other family. I started checking his credit card statements more carefully, something I had never bothered to do before, because I trusted him completely. What I found made my blood boil. Charges at expensive baby stores. Payments to a fancy restaurant in Santa Monica every Wednesday night. A monthly payment to something called Ocean View Property Management, which I realized must be the rent on the apartment where his mistress lived. My apartment. The one my parents had bought for Marcus and me. But the most infuriating discovery came when I found a jewelry store receipt hidden in Marcus's wallet. A $15,000 diamond necklace. Purchased just last week. The same week he had told me we couldn't afford to go on vacation because business was slow. I sat in my car outside that jewelry store, staring at the receipt and feeling like I might explode from pure rage. But I didn't explode. Instead, I did something much more dangerous. I got smart. When Sarah Chin called me 2 weeks later, I was ready for her report. "You were right about everything," she said grimly. "Your husband has been living a double life for over 2 years. She handed me a thick folder full of photographs, financial records, and detailed reports. Pictures of Marcus entering the Santa Monica apartment building every Wednesday. Pictures of him playing with baby Leo in the park. Pictures of him shopping for expensive gifts with the woman I now knew was named Maria Santos. Phone records showing hundreds of calls between Marcus and Maria over the past 2 years. Hotel receipts from romantic weekends they had taken together. Even airline tickets for a trip to Hawaii they had taken last month while Marcus told me he was at a business conference in Phoenix. "There's more," Sarah said. "I tracked the financial irregularities you suspected. Your husband has embezzled approximately $300,000 from Emma's projects over the past 2 years. $300,000. Even more than I had calculated. But here's the interesting part," Sarah continued. "He's been very sloppy lately. Almost like he's planning to disappear soon. In the past month, he's moved large amounts of money to accounts that only he can access." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, disappear?" "I think he's planning to leave you and run away with his girlfriend and their baby. Probably within the next few weeks." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. It was one thing to know Marcus was cheating and stealing. It was another thing entirely to realize he was planning to abandon me completely and take as much money as he could grab. "There's one more thing," Sarah said quietly. "Maria Santos is pregnant again." The world went silent around me. Marcus wasn't just planning to leave me for his existing family. He was expanding that family while still married to me. That night, I sat in my study and stared at all the evidence spread out on my desk. Photos, receipts, bank records, phone logs, everything I needed to destroy Marcus completely. I could call the police right now and have him arrested for embezzlement. I could call a divorce lawyer and take him for everything he was worth. I could expose him publicly and ruin his reputation forever. But as I sat there planning my revenge, I realized something important. This wasn't just about punishing Marcus anymore. This was about protecting my family's legacy and making sure he could never hurt anyone else the way he had hurt me. I picked up my phone and made 3 very important calls. The first call was to Mr. Rodriguez, our family lawyer. I need you to freeze all accounts associated with Emma's projects immediately. We have a fraud situation. The second call was to my father. Dad, I need you to come to my house tomorrow morning. Bring Mom. We need to have a serious family meeting. The third call was the most satisfying one of all. I called Marcus. Hello, sweetheart, I said in my sweetest voice when he answered. I have a wonderful surprise planned for you this weekend. Can you make sure you're free on Saturday afternoon? I want to invite some very special guests over to celebrate our marriage. Of course, darling, Marcus said, sounding pleased. What's the occasion? Oh, it's just time for everyone to see what kind of man I really married, I said, smiling as I spoke. I think it's going to be a day that changes everything for us. That sounds perfect, Marcus said. I love you, Emma. I love you too, I replied, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't lying. Because I did love the new Emma I was becoming. The Emma who wasn't going to be anyone's victim ever again. If you're dying to know what Emma's revenge plan is and how this story ends, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends who love drama, and subscribe to our channel. Ring that notification bell so you never miss our shocking true stories. What do you think Emma should do to Marcus? Let us know in the comments below. Marcus thought he could play games with a naive little rich girl. But he was about to discover that he had actually been playing games with a Salazar. And Salazars always win.